Hi and welcome to another Memories Made video. I'm designer Jen Gallacher and today we're creating an 8.5 by 11 inch layout. And we're going to use strips of paper, and we are also going to be using some embossing powder. I want to show you how embossing powder stands out a little bit brighter than does normal stamping ink. So first we're starting with a sheet of 8.5 by 11 inch cardstock. And then I have cut down a My Mind's Eye cut and paste pattern paper to go on top. And I did leave a little bit of the white cardstock showing all around the edge of the white cardstock, as you can see here. Now, the reason why I'm using strips of pattern paper today is I wanted to show you how you can use your scraps of pattern paper. So this is a Teresa Collins pattern paper, and I liked this bold gold color. And then I just pulled out a couple of other different scraps of pattern paper that matched the color scheme that I was interested in. So if you're the type of person that keeps your scraps, this is a great way to use them up. And the first thing that I'll do is I will start visually kind of laying them on my page and just kind of getting a feel. And you'll notice that they're not cut at the same width across or height tall. And it's just kind of a mishmash, and what makes it work is that the colors are all coordinating and no pattern draws more attention than the other. So I look for subtle patterns, or else I only use one bold pattern instead of using a bunch of different bold patterns. So that's how you can make these strips of paper work together, even if they didn't come in the same collection. So let's start adhering them down. This pattern paper is from Jelly Bean Soup, and it does have a text on it. So do make sure that the text faces the correct direction. You don't want text that is upside down. And this one goes all the way across my layout. And then I'll put this gold Teresa Collins a little bit on top. And then I had some pattern paper that is glittered, and it can be considered cardstock or glitter pattern paper. And it is quite stiff and it's thick. There are also versions from companies that are a little bit less thick that you can die cut and punch. This one's much thicker. It's actually almost a chipboard, so you can't die cut out of it unless you have one of those foam kind of die cuts. The more thin metal die cuts struggle with chipboard that's this thick. So I wanted a shiny element, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. From Little Yellow Bicycle is this fun chipboard piece, and it will go on top here. And because this is chipboard, it doesn't stick as well with the dot runner adhesive, so I will use just some glue dots. Whatever strong adhesive you have will work as well. And we'll just layer that on top of the yellow rectangle. And then before I place the blue one down, I'm going to use some twine. You can use baker's twine for this, or this is white crochet twine. I use this crochet twine quite a bit. And we're just going to wrap it around the cutout pennant. And I usually wrap it about 3 times. And then we'll tie it into a bow. You could also tie it into a knot if you prefer. So it's a little tricky to hold it down, but I do like to do this. It adds a little bit of texture. Twine, lace, ribbon, trim, all those things add a little bit of texture to projects. And so I always try to add some different texture so that the layout doesn't look flat. I've also added texture by using that glitter pattern paper. So if you find your layouts look a little dull, a little flat, they need something special, think of ways that you can bring in texture, whether it's a brad that's metallic or something else, you can bring those things in. So before I add any of these other strips, I want to show you the stamp we're going to be using today. And it is a stamp from Hampton Arts and Sizzix. It is an Echo Park paper design that they have created, and it is a die cut and stamp combination. I'm also going to be using this zinc embossing powder. It is denim, but I want to show you what it looks like when I use a stamping ink pad. This particular one is Blue Bayou from Stampin' Up. So let me show you how it looks and how it varies in the color that it uses. So first I'll just stamp it with the blue ink pad. And depending on whether you have a pigment or a dye ink and the tone of your pad will determine how deep and rich this blue is. So the first time I stamped it, this is what it looked like. And while it was fine, I wanted something a little bit more dramatic. And the way to do that is to use embossing powder. It will give it a more opaque, meaning less see-through look. Now you can use an embossing ink pad for this, but I tend to like Versamark ink pads. They're a little bit more sticky and they stay sticky for a lot longer. So Versamark ink pad, some embossing powder, and your stamping ink. And then we're gonna go ahead and stamp and emboss that, and I'll show you how I do that. So I've removed my layout so I can show you how this works. I'm using white cardstock. It does have a texture on one side and it's flat on the other. When I am stamping, I typically use the smooth side of the cardstock. So then I take the stamp and ink it up with Versamark ink. And it is clear, which is a little bit difficult to see when I'm stamping. They have embossing ink pads that are tinted. Most of them are light pink, and that allows you to see the image. But you can kind of see where I have it. Then I'll take a scratch piece of pattern paper. This is super fancy. And I just fold it in half, and then I place the stamped item kind of in the center. This allows me to sprinkle it with embossing powder. Go ahead and be generous with it. And then I tap off all the excess powder into that center fold, and you can see how it looks like. And this particular denim does tend to stain the cardstock, but not all embossing powders do that. For some reason, this denim color always stains my paper a little bit, but since I'm going to die cut it, I'm not even worried about it. So then using that crease and fold in the pattern paper, I just slide the excess embossing powder right back into the container. Now for this next step, you're going to need an embossing heat gun. And this is what they look like. They are much hotter than, say, a blow dryer or something like that. And what it does is it's going to heat set the embossing powder. And you just turn it on and you're going to move it around like this. You don't want to go too close to the paper or it warps your pattern paper. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and show you what it looks like so that you don't have to hear the noise of the heat gun, as it is quite noisy. So when you are done, the stamped image is a little more opaque and it has a slightly glossy finish. Now, like I said, this particular set comes with a matching metal die cut. And I've showed you previously that Sizzix now has a magnetic platform, and this is wonderful. So you can place your pattern paper or your cardstock on top of the magnetic platform. Be sure to follow their instructions. You can see here how it tells you how to use the clear plates as well as the platform. But the die cut sticks. You can see that it just sticks on top, and so I can place it down and then I can manipulate it and slide it exactly where I want, and then no matter what I do, it's not going anywhere. This ensures that when I die cut it, I get a nice clean image. So if you haven't checked out this magnetic platform, be sure to do so. I went ahead and die cut it for the purposes of moving through this video quickly, but you can see what a nice clean cut it gives that particular stamped image. So look for tools that save time. So let's go ahead and place this on our layout. So we're going to go ahead and place it right on top of the tied twine, and you can either use pop dots or you can use glue dots to hold it in place. We want to place it like so. All right, then I wanted to use a fabric frame that I've been hoarding, and I've used these before, and it's yellow. The element at the bottom, the Happy Life, is already on this fabric frame, and it is not self-adhesive, but I am going to use this for the main photo. Then I have a photo of my niece. She is hoarding some licorice at a recent family picnic, and I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. So what I'll do is I'll place the frame on top, kind of get a feel for where I want it to go, and then I'll just use a pencil to mark off where I need to trim the photo. So don't be afraid to trim your 4x6 photos to fit the frames. Do not trim a heirloom photo that you don't have a copy of. I firmly believe in not destroying the family heirloom photos. So again, I'm going to use glue dots to hold this frame on the photo. And it is a little bit flimsy, so I will do one corner at a time to ensure I get it exactly where I want it. That way if I need to pull it up, I can. And these are made to fit 4x6 photos. So then I can place additional glue dots on the bottom of the photo. And then I can adhere the frame. You just keep adding adhesive until it sticks exactly how you want. Okay, now I can place some adhesive on the back of that frame and photo, and I'm going to gently slide it underneath that glitter pattern paper. And I want to make sure that the butterfly element does not cover her little face. I don't want to obscure her cute little face. And then I can add additional pieces behind if I want to, just by lifting it up. Or you can do this step beforehand. Even if you're using permanent adhesive, if you move quickly, you can manipulate and change things pretty fast. So I also wanted to incorporate some washi tape, and this is some from KI Memories. And I'm just going to do a messy tear. And we'll just adhere that right onto the pattern paper. And then I want to add this fun pattern paper from American Crafts. On one side it is a floral, and on the other side it is a text that has multicolors, and this one also goes clear across the layout. This particular blue pattern paper is from the new My Mind's Eye Cut and Paste collection. And again, I'm not going to put it clear across the page. I'm just going to do it partially across the page. You'll notice some of my strips are thin and some are a little more thick. That makes it more interesting. Again, some washi tape. This particular pink tape is from Bella Boulevard, and it is slightly thinner in width than the word one. They come in lots of different widths, so check them out. There's even some now that are quite wide, and that's always fun. All right, let's go ahead and adhere that frame back down now that we've got the strips where we want them. One thing that has been really hot this season, especially at the recent Craft and Hobby Association show, are sequins. And these are some fun sequins from Teresa Collins, and it comes in a set, and it came with several different kinds, and they came in baggies like this and different sizes. So the silver was small and then the pink and blue were a little larger, but they add a little bit of bling. And so I want to add a few to this layout. And one way that I like to adhere them, you could use liquid glue, but if you have the smallest glue dot that you can find, you can just add a glue dot right to the back of it. You can also machine stitch through them. They're just thin enough that it doesn't hurt your needle. So that is always an option. So we're just going to do 3 on that side and 2 up here. And I always use odd numbers when adding embellishments. Now to decorate this edge of the frame, I am going to be using some more chipboard pieces from the Little Yellow Bicycle collection. And you can see there's a bicycle one and some vintage spool tops. These used to be stickers that you find on spool tops. And we'll go ahead and adhere them to the side of the photo. And then I want to bring in a little bit more bling. So I'm going to add another sequin down here. And when you purchase these sequins, look for fun storage options like little bowls or a little doll tea set that are small enough but cute to hold your supplies. I have a paper clip that is an exclusive product to 2 Peas in a Bucket, and this one is a light pink one, and I'm going to adhere it to the butterfly die cut. And I think rather than adhere it with glue dots, I want it to stand up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add some pop dots to it. So just on the back of the butterfly wings, you can just put a few pop dots. Since the die cut that I used, the blue die cut and the glitter paper, is a little bit taller than the rest of my page, it makes it difficult to have that butterfly lay flat. So that's how I determine sometimes how to use and when to use foam dots. Just place that right on top there. And then I'm going to take this last spool chipboard piece and I'm going to place it onto the butterfly, and I'm going to offset it. It looks like this one's going to need a foam dot as well. So it doesn't have to be centered. You can add things off-centered. Just make sure that if it has text on it, that it does stand up straight. And I think I want to add some additional elements to this particular die cut, so I'm going to use some stick pins. And I have a collection of several different ones, and I can just place them right in that foam that I stuck in there. And I'm just using a star pin. So I do keep like embellishments by each other. So for the bottom of the layout, I wanted to use a new stamp set that I got. I love Ali Edwards' handwriting. And this one says things like super fantastic, nothing better. And I wanted to use this for my journaling, and so I'm going to stamp several phrases. And then I will add the chipboard letter title that is also from the collection that I have been using for the chipboard elements here, here, and here. So to stamp the journaling, I'm going to place a foam base underneath that will allow me to have clean stamping through all these different layers that I've been using. And then I'm going to use a acrylic block. Mine's a little dirty, it probably needs to be cleaned. And then I'm going to pick a phrase that I like, and we'll make sure it fits on my block. And we'll use, and if it doesn't, you can just pick a bigger block. And the key with using these stamps is you want to make sure that you place them on as flat as possible. If you have a acrylic block with a grid, it does help with placing the stamp. But because it is clear, I do have some ability to see where it's going to stamp. We're not going for perfection here. We're simply just trying to stamp some fun journaling phrases. This is Summer Starfruit from Stampin' Up. So it's just really, really subtle. And then we'll use a different phrase. I could repeat the phrase that I started with if I wanted to, but I kind of wanted to do some different phrases. One says the absolute best, and one says so totally love you. And I try to match my ink to the patterns and colors I've already been using. So you can see how we're just creating a few things. And then I'm trying to do them that use stamps that are not the same length, because I kind of want to create a little visual triangle of these words. So one is kind of medium, one is long, and then one is a little bit shorter. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can kind of see how there's a tier here. All right, so putting away my stamps, let's go ahead and add the letters to the bottom. And these particular letters just came with the word love. So in this chipboard set, love was the only chipboard letters available, but that made making my title fairly easy. And I'm going to use glue dots to adhere these. Typically I place them kind of down first, get a feel for the centering, and then I come back and add adhesive to them. So we'll just add a glue dot to the top and bottom. You could run them through your Xyron machine if you prefer that. You could also machine stitch them. This chipboard is thin enough that it can be easily machine stitched through. And I am going to add a little bit of machine stitching to the layout later, just to give it the texture that I've been talking about. And it already does have a little bit of stitching, as you can see in this letter L right here at the top. That's a fun decorative element. I really love the little yellow bicycle embellishments and collections. They're really beautiful. Then I wanted to add a little bit of the yellow from the top to the bottom of my layout. And so I took a Fiskars border punch. This is one of my favorites. It's a nice scallop. And from the other side of the yellow pattern paper, I did a scallop border punch, and it is a little bit of a gold color, which perfectly matches the gold that is in the frame that I used. And so I tried to center the scallop as best I can, and then I trim off the excess, and I'll check it a few times to make sure I got it. And then I'll just place it right under that pattern paper. Now that pattern paper was from my mind's eye. So I went ahead and did some machine stitching on the layout, and I wanted to show you I did a little bit of zigzag at the top, some zigzag on the side, and then at the very bottom I did some straight stitching. And I did use some yellow thread to match what I've done. So there you have a layout that uses both photo strips as well as some embossing powder to create a fun layout that's a way to use up your stash and just have some fun. Thank you for joining me for today's Memories Made video. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of these instructional videos.